Hello, and welcome to the 23rd episode of the Unifying Force, our 1-year anniversary celebration.
1 year, woo!
Hope you all had a wonderful May the 4th as we record this on Revenge of the 5th.
Oh, yes.
And happy Mother's Day for those watching on that, and happy VE Day for the same day. So, wow, here we are.
This is the May. There's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a fair number of things,
just a few weeks out from Star Wars Celebration. Hooray for that. We got a lot of programming planned out, so it's going to be very exciting to share with you guys. How is everybody today?
Really good, thanks. Yeah,
I'm doing well. I'm really excited. This so does not feel like an entire year that we've been doing this show. And when you just say episode 23, wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why, because when you look at other podcasters, we'll do that in like 3 weeks. We're catching up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, we are every other week, so yeah. It's been a little bit of doing.
And congratulations, we finally have our graphic insets working properly.
Well, I think that's a lot of the story of the first part of this show is if you go back and you watch, we're going to talk about things that happened in the beginning. We had a little bit of a time getting like the graphics and the technical things to go down for a while there. But let's back up a little bit further than that. And like I was not a regular on this show at the beginning. It was just the two of you, and we had other people producing like behind the scenes. So like, how about both of you talk about like the impetus for this show? Is like, what was the idea? What came along? How did it get started? And talk about those first few episodes.
Well, it started, I think, because Gio and I have a habit of getting into these deep conversations in the chat on the Thursday night watch-alongs. And
yeah,
Spencer and John and Frank picked up on that. And Spencer just kind of shot me a message out of the blue. He's like, hey, I think you should do a show. Star Wars Philosophy, great. I was like, okay. And he's like, pick your co-host. And I immediately, there was no question. It's got to be Gio. There's no Gio, there's no show. And so Spencer's like, oh yeah, we'll make it work and all that. And so we just it just came together so quickly. And I think he first sent me the message in maybe April of last year. And then we were off to the races in May. And for the fans, of course, out there watching, Spencer was on a lot of the early episodes. He'd just be off screen and he'd be feeding us all the questions from the group of who's been watching. But that's how we kind of got started.
Yeah, it was such a privilege really to have the opportunity to do this and to talk kind of long form and kind of shoot it off a little bit more. But yeah, it all came about just, I guess, with lockdown and the virtual cantina really taking shape and getting involved in those watch-alongs. Just initially just taking it in and finding this kind of new digital online Star Wars Celebration family, and just getting involved as the weeks go on. Watch-alongs, you're kind of more invested, and then you're thinking, okay, maybe I can type a little bit more. It seems like there's comments, because it's always a kind of a risk in a way when you're trying to participate in something for the first time. And you think, yeah, okay, there are enough comments going on. People are watching a big, famous, much loved movie. If I say something stupid, no one will really take notice. No one will matter. It won't matter at all. very low risk. And then you just keep typing and shooting your thoughts off here and there, and it becomes like a interactive little brainstorm between a few people. And obviously the momentum of watching the film carries you through a little bit, and it just seemed like the next step. And again, Spencer just shot me a message kind of out of the blue and was saying we were having this discussion about, doing some other kind of programming, and we're thinking about doing a show about philosophy and the culture of Star Wars. And I spoke to Catherine, and we both said this, and your name came up as the first name, and I was just, I don't know how to deal with good comments. So I'm glad it was typed, because I was just about 5 seconds later thought, wow, thank you so much. That's really cool. And it's been fun to be part of this. And I don't know what the format or anything will be. And he was like, no, don't worry. We'll just get off to it and see how it evolves, see how it goes. And that must have been, I think, late April for me. So a couple of weeks later, it was just on and going. And Spencer was producing behind the scenes. I think using Jonathan's account as well. And it was, I don't remember if that was before or after all the Darth Spencer jokes and memes had come about.
It was always stuff.
But it was, it definitely felt like, a voice of the Force, the dark side, who knows, in our ears saying, oh, okay, we're ready in 3, 2, and good to go. So yeah, it was a first in many ways, but a fun way to kick things off. And I'm really glad, just looking back over the number of months, to have it continue and for us to become a trinity here, and have you, Dave, with us. I think it's been really nice just to get the balance and the back and forth, and it's been a lot more visually appealing to have these graphics and the kind of slickness in the backgrounds, and really given us a kind of marketing image and a kind of model to go on. And you've done such a cracking job through the other shows. I still don't believe how good Spencer's news desk looks whenever he has an update. But yeah, it's the magic behind the scenes has been really appreciated, and it's so much fun to be part of it all and to see it evolve.
Well, that's good. That's great. I mean, yes, I in preparation for our retrospective have gone back and watched a lot of those early episodes, and it's like cringing at some of the technical aspects and the things that I was doing. And it's like there's one episode where we're talking about this, and just the sound totally blows, and you see an unending stream of repeating windows that are being displayed on the screen, and this and that. But,
like Ray's reflection.
Oh yeah, exactly like Ray's reflection.
It was a vision.
Had we done it on purpose, that would have been amazing. But we totally didn't, because that's not the way we roll. But so talk to me again just about the themes for the first couple of episodes before I was a regular part on here. I'd guest hosted on a few of them here and there, but the theme for like the first 3 or 4 episodes is, the origins of the Force, mystical places in the Star Wars universe, the self-fulfilling prophecies, and the hero's journey. So talk to me of some of your memories on those.
Well, that was an easy place to start, because Joseph Campbell is Star Wars, and it's like end statement right there. And so he already does. It's like hero's journey. I'll just brush up on my Hero of the Thousand Faces book that I got, that George, of course, talked about a lot. Self-fulfilling prophecies are just jumped out at me so much throughout all of the Star Wars movies. So that was a fun one to talk about. And there were a lot of real world comparisons we could make with that. Same with the cults in Star Wars, because there's a lot of different cults, and we think about plenty of cults today throughout modern history and ancient history to brush up on. And Origins of the Force is kind of just his original story in the early 70s, how he based a lot of that on Taoism and the like, and Buddhism. And so we went into reading a lot about that, and Gio brought a lot of that knowledge to the table as well.
Yeah, it seemed like a nice place to start. Taking it back, when we think of new themes to talk about or discussions, you kind of think, should we go chronologically, timeline order, and why not start with the beginning of everything in the Star Wars universe? And taking it back to George's primary major inspiration behind the mystical aspects of Star Wars, I think it's really fair to say Joseph Campbell is the main man. And it made sense to go as that like foundation stone into just wider discussions and talking about the philosophical and kind of moral questions that Star Wars brings up that can really resonate with us as individuals. Just, you know, it's 2022. He started this in the mid 70s, and we're still talking about it. So things are really connected in every kind of way. I mean, there's so many ways that Star Wars means things to each of us, and I think the undercurrent of maybe a kind of spiritual, mystical element does draw some people in who might otherwise have not connected to, you know, like a major franchise or a major IP in other circumstances. So I think it's a way in for some people who might not necessarily see that in elsewhere in kind of contemporary pop culture. And then it's just another factor to keep the rest of us coming back if that's one of many things that we love about Star Wars. And I think because of the way George Lucas had this idea for, well, initially something that was more younger market targeted, but then evolved and had a lot more meaning. It wasn't always necessarily the meaning that he attributed to it, but the meaning that other voices around him who liked what he had could then go and run with. And that was almost the formula to allow the expanded universe and the other Star Wars stories to take shape, and really keep Star Wars enthusiasm at a high once the original trilogy and the special editions were done, and then the prequels, of course. So yeah, just going back to what we were saying, it made sense to look at it from, you know, the kind of mythic aspects of what gave George Lucas the idea of Star Wars. And as we've seen in these discussions, we can almost really go to town in some aspects, and there's a lot of cyclical, repeated late motifs and aspects that,
Oh yeah,
on the one
because
hand,
we
could
ended
be
up
tropes.
like talking about on the world between worlds and Mortis and various aspects of Mortis, like what, on 3 different episodes, I think we're going through the
Yeah.
world between worlds because there's so much to it. You know, and some other themes have repeated. You know, we've talked about Boba Fett more than once. We've talked about, you know, real,
Mortis a couple times.
yeah, and like I think my favorite episodes, let's kind of go to there, is, you know, my favorite episodes are the episodes where we're connecting Star Wars and the content of Star Wars and even the philosophical to real world. I love the hero's journey. I love talking about, you know, whether the Jedi would be a spiritual movement or a religious institution, okay? Because I mean, there are people that identify as Jedi in real life. That's a thing on the census in the real world at this point. So I think my favorites, well, my
Well,
first favorites, because I've got more than one favorite. I've got a bunch of categories of favorites, I think, of this show. But my first favorite
Cool.
stuff is that where we can talk about the hero's journey. We can talk about how that connects to other literature. We can talk about the Jedi and how they connect to real world religion. So I think that's some of my favorites. So what kind of favorites would the two of you have from the episodes we've done?
well, first of all, I think the whole thing with Jedi being on census had a bit more to do with tax races than it did with pure religion. But as far as favorites, those early ones were really good because there was so much like I mentioned, there was so much obvious content to mine. I mean, lately, it's been a while since we've been connecting it with the real world. It's been like, you know, Star Wars chat, which is still fun. But like, yeah, when we talked about the cults of Star Wars, the origins of the Force, and the hero's journey, and moving on to things like spiritual journey of Boba Fett was fun because there's all sorts of different interpretations of it. There's no like right or wrong answer. Same thing when we were discussing our theories for the Kenobi show and how is that going to influence or change his story as it exists in canon, and how it's going to influence our interpretation of that story. So those are always fun. I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I like the ones where there are more than one opinion of the three of us, and I really love it when our viewers can interact with us and that we get to arguing and you know, having a lively discussion in the chat. I really enjoy that. What about
Yeah,
you,
getting
Gio?
some of those questions in there for some of the episodes when we've had the live chat. It's been really nice to just keep things a little fresh, keep things kind of on our toes, and sometimes you get the kind of the best discussions can be just organically responding to something that you haven't thought of or didn't occur to, at least for myself, and from what I see. So that's definitely been fun and something new to kind of contend with. And also when you're kind of responding to those questions, what I found is sometimes I think, oh wait, I had these points and now they've just escaped me. But it's fine because when we've got that interaction, that's a huge part of this, and that's what allows us to keep making this a sustainable thing. So we really value those, and just yeah, I guess when we've had the opportunity to be kind of freeform and kind of talk Star Wars more globally in a way, and bring up some of the parallels between what we experienced contemporarily in kind of 20th century history and then going much further back, and different eras and different times, and then comparing that to kind of the worldviews that are presented by these new voices in Star Wars that aren't just George Lucas and the Campbellian idea that he had with the hero's journey, and seeing how there are many different directions that characters can take and narrative choices that can be made, which may or may not be influenced by literature around us. And I'm always kind of the opinion that I remember there's that kind of like stock phrase that no one really writes anything that isn't really autobiographical, like all the fiction, all the fantasy, no matter how far out there and weird and wonderful it can be, there's always a central human aspect that makes it interesting, that connects us, that makes us want to read or want to watch. And I think Star Wars has a lot of aspects of that. And when we've got into that kind of the meat and bones in some of our discussions, like the ones that you mentioned, going into the spiritual journey of Boba Fett, I think that was more of a fun discussion time that I spent than watching a lot of the Book of Boba Fett, if I'm allowed to say that.
Well, that's a whole other concept right
so,
there. Some of
I think we're in
the
agreement
choices
there.
made there.
yeah. So and then getting into kind of the what if scenarios has been fun too, just thinking alternatively what choices the characters could have made. But going back to the foundational stuff, it's when we talk about Star Wars in a more kind of complex, multifaceted way, and can reflect it in what we see in the real world. That's, I think, kind of been like the core engine behind what started this, and has been some of the really fun discussions we've had talking about where the Jedi would classify as a religious institution. And then the next follow-up episode was very much a continuation of that, because there was almost so much to speak about. And I think we had some good interactions and comments in those episodes as well. So having that kind of ball rolling, and having the dynamic that we've got has just made it a fun experience to be part of. And yeah, I'd say some of the best ones that I always think of when we're coming up with, like the next Unifying Force, or we just know, the Sunday we're going to be doing the recording or whatever. I think of those topics, those kind of universal themes, which is kind of what we came up with the idea for the Unifying Force title.
Well, absolutely. As I love when we get deep and philosophical. I love when we just kind of like roll with something off the cuff, as we'll throw out an idea. And we've said this to some of our viewers, like in person on the Tuesday nights and this and that. This show really works organically. Yeah, we do a little bit of research as we throw out a topic ahead of time and have some time to think about it. But this is not scripted. It's not in the slightest. You're hearing off the cuff opinions and us bouncing off each other, and I love how that works. I've loved my second favorite thing. I told you there was like more than one, so I'm gonna limit myself to two. The first one is just when we connect it to the real world, and the other way is when we just go ballpark out there, pie in the sky. I love the what if episodes. That's kind of connecting to the real world because it's influenced by, the multiverse of madness and Marvel's what ifs and this and that. But taking that what if concept and just letting ourselves and our imaginations and our own headcanon go into the wild with the Star Wars universes. I've really enjoyed that. What have you two thought about the what ifs there?
Those are really fun. It's because, like you said, it's anything goes, and
Yeah,
there's no limiting what type of idea you come up with. Because again, there's no agendas on the show. Whatever comes to mind, speak it.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just fun thinking about like these are some of our favorite characters and some of the most pivotal scenes in Star Wars. So to think of like alternatives or what you could have done if if the ball was fully in your court, it's just a fun exercise to be part of. It's a kind of thought experiment on one hand. It's a way of discussing kind of character and story in another, and it's just a fun diversion to get you thinking more about Star Wars in terms of not just like the big franchise and the plot, but character choices. And I guess that kind of boils down to one of the essences of the show, which is moral choices. And like what in a garden of forking paths, which one do you take? And that's a fun thing to explore when we've got our kind of what ifs. And yeah, just kind of getting far out there with the different avenues and streets and channels that different characters could take or could have taken is pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, I think here is as good a place as any to really like talk directly to you, our viewers. We're not doing this one live today. We're recording this one ahead of time because this is the Sunday of Mother's Day, and we want to, we'll have the episode up there for you to have time and for us to have time with those mother figures in our lives. But we need to hear from you to keep things going. We want to interact with you. We want to know what kind of what ifs would you like to see? What other deep philosophical topics can we explore and hash around? What's going to bring you to our forum? So leave the comments on there. We read these pretty much live as you make them. So we want to know what you are thinking. We've got some ideas planned out for the next little bit. We've got some kind of what if things that we've thrown down. We've got some more connecting this show and connecting Star Wars to real life, if there is such a things. But always keep giving us ideas and feeding us, and maybe a year from now we'll be talking about year 2 and doing a retrospective of what we've done in this year. So keep that going for us. So any other thoughts on our first year before we kind of switch gears? We're going to do kind of a 2-part show, and we do have a topic for you today, a timely topic. But any final thoughts before we switch gears and go there? I think you're on mute, Catherine.
It's been a fast year.
Really has.
Yeah, it's kind of been hyperspeed, but yeah, it's been a fun ride. And thanks everyone who's joined us, and thanks to you two, of course, and everyone who's enabled this at the Virtual Cantina Network and Star Wars Celebration group. And yeah, let's keep it going. Let's keep the adventure continuing.
All right. Well, okay, I lied because I'm going to talk about my third favorite episode.
Go for
it. Because it's a transition to the other thing. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my third favorite episode, which was kind of my least favorite episode to have filmed, and that is episode. I got to go back and look at my list to remember which one was which, but it's episode 16, Becoming One with the Force. And why we shot episode 16 is because our friend and brother Rich passed away, and we were gone for several weeks. Both all the shows we were down. But I went back and I watched that show in preparation for this. I watched that this afternoon, and I think that was one of the ways that really connected the real world and what's happening. That did all of the things that are our favorites about this show. It connected the real world. It connected our emotions. It connected our feelings to that Star Wars universe. And there are, lots of other people in our lives. Is losing Rich was a big thing, but another thing that we're going to talk about in our topic today is it's Mother's Day, Do they do Mother's Day in the UK at the same time as
Yeah.
we do, or is it? Yeah.
No, it's in March.
Okay,
I
so
think yeah,
it's similar. It's like a
it's Mother.
springtime, but it's not the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
day. So it's Mother's Day here in the US. So we're going to talk about, you know, mothers in Star Wars, and we're going to talk about their effect and how that happens. So let us transition here. So yeah, is we're going to talk about moms in Star Wars. Is right here. We've got here. See, the immersive background always throws me up there. We've got a ton of, you know, literal moms and female mother figures in Star Wars. And you'll see our selection, and we'll talk about these. And again, if you've got other ideas about it, and you've got it, mention it in the chat, because probably any one of these figures is important enough in the Star Wars universe that they could have their entire episode. But we're just going to kind of hit the high points. So who wants to pick one and start talking?
Well, Padme would be probably a brief one. It's funny because even though the prequel trilogy retcons it in Return of the Jedi, when Luke asks Leia, "Do you remember your mother, your real mother?"
Mhm.
And Leia says a few words. She died when I was ever young, kind, all that kind of stuff. And it feels, after you watch the prequels, it very much does echo Padme, even though, of course, the continuity doesn't really make sense anymore. And that was kind of surprising, because it's like you can see a lot of Padme in Luke and Leia. And
Yeah.
it's kind of weird because it's like she didn't raise them at all, but the influence is very much there, which I thought was kind of neat, even though that's a very brief, all too brief moment in the movie, or in the films in general, because she didn't really have anybody that she was like mentoring or anything before then.
Yeah. Is it is funny, and I mean it's like I guess, and I assume that George was writing it in retrospect that way, and he was, going back, and it's like, okay, these are things that happened in the original trilogy. This is how Leia is this strong, independent woman. Is she can't come from anything else other than a strong, independent woman, who's just as quick to pick up a blaster in negotiations as anything else. But that kind of brings us to another one of the ones up there is, Padme's the Padme's traits in Leia are probably really not from Padme, but if you look at that picture up there, who else is that? That is name escapes me, but Bail Organa's wife is Leia's foster mother.
Breha Organa. I
There
did
you
look
go.
it up though after we were coming up short in the. I'll admit, but yeah, Breha Organa. Yeah.
So we can only assume. I mean, we see a lot of like Bail Organa, as Jimmy Smith's never ages, is in everything, but
True.
we don't see. Do we see anything of her other than like this shot of her cradling the baby and like we're gonna no. But
I mean, maybe molecules and after talking gives a signal. No.
Oh, too soon. Too soon.
But yeah, no, we see nothing. We it's a shame because there's definitely some sort of story to be told there in the intervening years. Yeah.
Absolutely, because I mean, we see young Leia. We know that this has happened throughout Leia's life. Is that we see this in Rebels, is that she's been a resistance fighter and this kind of leader from the beginning. And I always assume that that's from her adoptive parents. It's got to be. They've got to play that kind of part, and that's got to be a thing. So let's keep it going and talking about adoptive parents. Is Gio, what do you think about our other kind of adoptive parent in here? We've talked about who raised Leia. Let's talk about Aunt Beru, who's raised Luke.
Yeah, well, she's been there with Uncle Owen, from as much of Luke's significant life as can be, really. He was just a couple of days old when Obi-Wan handed him over at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and you don't really get the feeling that Uncle Owen's characteristics are the good in Luke so much, and there's definitely that kind of contrast between the bitter, cynical, pessimistic view that Uncle Owen has, and the much more kind of hopeful and softer, gentler character that Aunt Beru has. And I think it's a really good part of Star Wars in that there's so much about families, but to take it back to the original trilogy, it was very centrally, a father-son kind of story paradigm and conflict, and it really speaks to how Star Wars has a lot to offer to a lot of people in terms of character, because you have strong biological mothers and you've got strong adoptive and foster mothers that have imparted, even if it's behind the scenes between films, between visual appearances, have to have had a substantial role in creating the character that we see on screen, in Leia as it is with Breha Organa, or in Luke with Aunt Beru. So I think that's a really nice aspect to remind ourselves in Star Wars, that the mothering aspect is a strong part that shapes the heroes that we know best and spend the most time with, and that's not to be forgotten and not to be taken lightly at all.
Yeah. And Catherine, I know Aunt Beru was on your list of to talk about. What do you have to say, or what are your thoughts on Aunt Beru?
Beru seems to be the encouraging one. Like, she loved the idea that, oh, he's not a farmer, and he has too much of his father in him, and it's like, who his father is, right? Like, Owen gives her that kind of look. It's like, how that turned out, and she doesn't care. She's just like, oh, it's so wonderful. And it's like, yeah, he definitely got some of it. Luke got some of that headstrong spirit from Beru, like, go out and try fast, take chances type thing.
Yeah.
So that's so that's where Beru comes in a bit. I mean, I know she didn't get to say anything in episode 2 really, and I don't know if she'll. I know she's back for the Kenobi series. I don't know if she'll have anything more to say, but that would be interesting to see that kind of dynamic revisited. Like, how's she going to react to the way Owen's freaking out about Obi-Wan? She's like, oh, does she know he's not a farmer yet? Because it seems like even in the trailer, little Luke being all excited, pretending to be like an X-Wing pilot or whatever. Sounds like Beru is somebody who would encourage that, whereas Owen, if he saw Luke doing that, would take away the helmet and stuff. It's like, get back to work.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a great thing about, like we were talking about, is Leia's upbringing. We don't know. We've seen the little bits that we saw in Rebels. That's another story to be told. Well, they're about to tell and fill in some of the story, at least, of Luke's upbringing. There's always these little bits of the universe and little pieces of the story that can be filled in and fleshed out. And I really hope that we see this. As I, chose the older Aunt Beru here, is I actually that graphic is covering up the younger Aunt Beru holding baby Luke, but we're gonna see her soon. It is the same actress, I believe, as Cass. That was
the same Australian actress, Bonnie Peace. I believe.
So we're gonna see some more of that story, and we're gonna find out more about these people, is not the twins' natural mothers, but they've definitely gone and
that was another thing at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Owen is very, he's looking out on the horizon, being very serene about it, and thinking about what he's about to take on, fully understanding what Obi-Wan expects. And Beru doesn't have any of that. She's just excited that, oh, cool, I get, we're gonna raise a son, and this is wonderful. And it's like, even in that one little scene, you get the difference in you understand the difference of what's coming, the difference of that relationship.
There's one thing actually that, just because I think looking ahead to this, that I knew Beru was definitely a character we wanted to mention, because again, she's one of the characters that, in a way, when you think of like the strong mother types, it's easy to omit. when there's Shmi and Padme and Leia and so on. But there's just trying to recall the exact. So when Luke is kind of despondent and he's kind of like walking out of the kind of kitchenette area, and he's like, "Looks like I'm going nowhere," and then Aunt Beru kind of turns to Uncle Owen and says, he can't stay forever. Most of his friends have gone. It means so much to him, to like join the Imperial Academy. And Uncle Owen just says, I'll make it up to him next year. And Aunt Beru, I think, says, Luke's, there's more to him than he's not just a farmer.
Yeah, he's not just a farmer. She knows and she sees that in him, and Aunt Beru gone and Uncle Owen gone too soon. But I look forward to seeing some more of them. And I mean, when I think of mother figures in Star Wars, she would be the top of my list because I am an OT person. Is that is the first mother we see, and we hear her called Aunt Beru. We know it's Aunt Beru, but we don't see a mother for Luke. We don't know anyone else who's raised them. These are his parental figures when, they're killed, and it leads him on his hero's journey. But yeah, that's who I think of first because that's the first person we see in 1977.
That's a fair point for sure. I guess it comes into like when our exposure was to Star Wars, perhaps.
Exactly.
There'll definitely be different generations who will be like, oh no, well, Shmi's the first mother that I saw, but then your parents didn't show you the right order.
Well, and you can't fault some of the people too, is kids that grew up and the first ones that they saw is the first ones that they would see in the theater. What's out is I'm sure there will be entire generations, and we respect as well, OT people, is the motherly figure of Leia that we'll talk about in a little bit. But you said Shmi is who wants to take it, who wants to talk. Let's talk about her.
So they're living their simple lives, not really expecting much. And, because Anakin has the whole spirit of wanting to help everybody, being so selfless, she allows him to do something that she's terrified of, which is the whole pod racing thing. But I think an interesting moment is that she kind of knows what this means, that Qui-Gon, like she picks up on the fact that Qui-Gon has been eyeing the kid. And you saw how despondent she was when he told her that I'm not actually here to free slaves.
Yeah.
And yet it's like it's like, okay, you're not here to free us, but you're really interested in what's going on with my kid. And it's like she suspects what's going on, but she hasn't really committed to it. And so after the pod race, when Qui-Gon says, he's been freed, you notice the look on her face isn't elation. It's kind of shock because she knows exactly what this means. He's going to leave her. And on the one hand, yes, she's happy that he's going to leave and have a better life. Obviously happy he's no longer a slave, but she doesn't allow Anakin to see that type of elation because she knows she doesn't want Anakin to think that she's excited at the fact that, oh, I'm not going to see you again. Because she kind of knows when she sends him away, despite that he says, I will come back and free you, Mom, I promise. She knows he's not coming back. Or that's what she believes, clearly. So why she says, which is why she tells him, don't turn away. And yeah, I admit, because of George Lucas's shoddy directing, it doesn't come off as nicely as it could have. But I thought that was a really, as far as mothers of Star Wars go, one of the most powerful double entendre scenes in the whole saga, when she restrains herself from that excitement, and then when she says, be brave, don't look back.
Yeah,
I'm like, that is so good.
She's the kind of iconic strong single parent, and because families can be fractured, and it's not always the way that characters in these kind of coming of age stories brought about. I mean, often there's family conflict, and Shmi, although she doesn't have too much screen time, she does have that presence, and I guess that's partly due to the acting as well, by Pernilla August. I think her expressions when she's having that conversation that you mentioned with Qui-Gon, and then when Qui-Gon then gives the news to Anakin that he's been freed once he wins the Boonta Eve race, that look that between like Jake Lloyd and Pernilla August that they exchange, there's so much in that that it really reminds me whatever that we say about the dialogue and the script and the writing, some of these performances can really burn themselves into our memory just on expression alone, and letting the other character, that is the John Williams score, really bring us up and down with our emotions. And I think that maybe one of the most standout moments of using the return to the binary sunset and the Force theme in The Phantom Menace is that moment. In fact, in the entire prequel trilogy, the moment of kind of defiance against like the diabolical structure that is the slavery on Tatooine, and how Anakin is walking away from that, but he's doing that with the so-called blessings and full support unconditionally from his mother. Shmi represents that kind of unconditional love and support. And although we don't get too much interaction or too much history between Shmi and Anakin, it's pretty safe to say that all his kind of dark tendencies came from the kind of harsh surroundings and kind of encroaching structures around him afterward. He was born into slavery, which is obviously absolutely awful, but Shmi gave him everything that he could, and I think it's a fair extrapolation to say that the good-natured aspects of Anakin's character will be coming from Shmi. They're not coming from Watto or any of the other characters in Mos Eisley.
Well,
and I think that's the key part that Shmi plays.
Well, I want to just talk about the importance of Shmi in how much, and it's in a dark way. But how much Anakin cares for her, loves her, is his attachment inevitably becomes his undoing. It starts with the whole path, the saga down the turn to the dark side is, when he finds out that she's been captured, she's been taken by the Tuscans, not just the men, but the women and the children, is he does that. I very nearly put up a slide and a graphic in here of Anakin carrying her wrapped body away from that, is because that moment, the Force called him back to go and free his mother. It was his attachment to her and what he had to do that kind of set him down the path to the dark side. And I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Shmi. That wasn't her fault. That wasn't her doing. That wasn't her thing. It, may well have been Anakin's destiny, is he's going to go down that road. That's one of those, self-fulfilling prophecies, is that was going to happen no matter what, but here's the impetus for it. But the importance of the mother figure. Another what if we could totally do is, would Luke have ended up going off with old Ben if Aunt Beru hadn't been killed? Would there have been something more to keep him there? Would he have had an attachment that would have done something else? That's another one that we can write down and go with later. But very, very important, the mother figures here. And I'll just hit on a couple of the others that we, like I said, this could go on for episodes and episodes, the talk of there, and we're getting on into this episode, but we've got other mothers. We've got Mala, which is Chewbacca's wife and Lumpy's mom. Even in the holiday special, they're thinking about family. That's a Star Wars thing. You were starting to say something, Catherine?
I was going to move on to Leia, but now that you mentioned Mala, there's not really much there. And
well, I was going to mention maybe Mala and Mara Jade and Ursa, and then we'll wrap it up with our general, our princess.
All right, yeah, I'm not sure how great of a mom Mala is, if she doesn't mind the grandfather sitting around doing those little alternative entertainments, we'll just say, for this family show in the room where the kids hanging out, running around playing.
It was the 70s. What do you know?
Yeah, it was the 70s. Yeah, that's great. But there wasn't, as I recall from the last time we watched it, there wasn't too much of a story there from the mom's perspective. It's like they're there, she's cooking a lot in the kitchen because they're preparing for Life Day, and then the stormtroopers show up, and she doesn't really do a good job of hiding Lumpy from the stormtroopers. But yeah, she's just kind of there.
Yeah, my major take about that is having a mother figure was important enough in that Wookiee family. It was important enough for Life Day for them to create a family for Chewbacca, and we don't see anything else. But maybe it's not just the motherhood or whatever, but it's family as an overarching theme in Star Wars. Is Chewbacca needed a family? We needed to know. I am, I think, most disappointed in the fact that we have not yet to date gotten a whole lot more about Mara Jade. There was so much there when The Force Awakens came out. I was on the edge of my seat. It's like, okay, we're seeing old Luke. It's like, we got this young girl. Where did she come from? Is this going to be the story of, what is it, Jaina and Jason Solo, or is this coming from Ben? What was it, Ben? Yeah, Ben Skywalker. Yeah, but it didn't go that way. So, like I said, I would have liked to have seen that. Would have been, I think, Mara Jade in the EU and in the kind of stories that she was in would have rivaled Leia, Padme as like the most badass mom in Star Wars right there. I mean, the Emperor's hand.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, actually, when the cast listings for The Last Jedi came out, and I saw and they announced Laura Dern, I was thinking, hey, similar kind of age to Mark Hamill, could it be? Because that could have been a nice fit. There could have been many things, the what ifs, but Mara Jade definitely would have been a fantastic character to see. And there are so many good stories in the comics and the novels, in video games that involve her character. And the fact that they borrowed a lot of elements from the stories around her make me think that, Disney, come on, lean back into the EU well and pick out one of the real jewels. Mara Jade, definitely one of those characters that would be great to see return.
Absolutely. And not all families, mother-daughter, mother-son relationships in Star Wars are, happy joy in life. Not that we've, Aunt Beru had a happy ending there, but I think we see in Rebels is the kind of tension that you have between Ursa Wren and Sabine is they're not shying away, thank you, in Filoni we trust, it from realism. Let's have this kind of love relationship, but one that's kind of gone wrong, a disappointment in choices and things that Sabine has done, and how she expresses those, and is not shy about it. But we see that for what is that's pretty good couple of 2 or 3 episode arc there. And then more stuff that we hope to see coming forward with properties that are coming out there is Hera Syndulla. Hera, the mother of, his name was on my list, Jason Syndulla. Yeah. Is, are we going to see eventually a live action Jason Syndulla? We've got the Ahsoka series coming out. Is he part of the search for Ezra that we presume, or the continuing fight against Thrawn? We're going to see how she's raised him, because I think the most of what we've seen of Jason Syndulla is it in video games? Is it where has that mention been?
I'm not sure. I only ever saw him in the epilogue of Rebels, so I don't really know anything about that or how that relationship turns out with Hera. So
yeah, well, like I said, that's one that it's another one of those little rabbit holes that could be gone down, and that we could see a whole lot more. It's a character in Hera that we've learned so many things about, but we haven't seen. We've seen her as a mother. We've seen her as a mother to Ezra, and a mother to Sabine. Probably more of a mother to Sabine than Ursa Wren herself that we've seen in at least canon and what's happened on screen. But another one of those things that we'd like to see more of.
Yeah, he really was the glue behind the crew of the Ghost, as well as being the actual main pilot. So She has the kind of agency there that we hadn't really seen a female character take, at least a mother, up until Rebels, I think. So that was a really strong step in like this expansive storytelling, I think.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I'm sure that we will see more of in the upcoming show, Rebels Revisited. And I look forward to that. And I hope any of you watching this are going to look forward to that as well. And that will be very interesting, as you know, we may end up playing off of some of the things that they're talking about on there and going into our own deep dives on that. So let's wrap it up with the big one, our royalty. I remember her as royalty, our princess, our general. Let's talk about Leia Organa as a mother figure of Star Wars. Who wants to go first?
I would say that for what we do get to see of her, because obviously we don't get to see when she's mentioning Kylo, but with Rey, it's interesting because for her being a character who so much was looking for a parent, sort of finds one in Leia, and that's first hinted at really at the end of The Last Jedi when they're together aboard the Falcon. She's like, we have everything we need, and she's kind of looking to her for guidance. And in Episode 9, you see how they've been bonding quite a lot, and that Rey is finally able to find the confidence to kind of move forward from this. It's like she doesn't. I mean, granted, at that point, she's sort of past the need to find her actual parents anymore, but she likes. But you can tell that Leia's doing a great job there, and she's not like trying to force her into doing anything she doesn't want to do. Kind of like, with Kylo, she, as we know, sent him off, or Ben Solo, I should say, sent him off to Luke because she was kind of, afraid. Oh, he needs the training. What do I do? Whereas with Rey, she's not making that mistake. She's kind of letting Rey, do her own thing with the Jedi texts, and just kind of like in that shot that you picked there for Leia, it's almost like she's feeling almost like she's getting a second chance at this. It's like, Ben kind of dropped the ball a little bit with Rey. I'm doing the right thing this time.
Gio?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's maybe one of the underlying themes of the sequel trilogy that's really strong, whether it was intentional or not, is that people are open to second chances, and no matter what kind of lies in your present or immediate past or history, you can still kind of choose to forge a different route for you going forward. And Leia seems to be that character for Rey when she needs to be. It would have been good to see much more of Carrie Fisher on screen, of course. There are multi-factors into, unfortunately, why that didn't happen. But from what we see of Leia's character, she's initially in The Force Awakens the kind of forlorn mother, very rueful. When she reunites with Han, it's immediately thoughts go to their son and what's become of him and the kind of torment of the past. But in Rey and in Leia as the mother character towards Rey, there's that new relationship that's forged. And again, it's a shame that The Last Jedi kind of sidelined characters onto different planets and being light years apart. But that kind of evolution of their relationship just towards the beginning, The Rise of Skywalker, is one of the better parts of it, in that it was not only explaining things for fans who were annoyed at power levels of training and experience, but the key part for me was that you have the strong female role model for Rey when she was lost. And it didn't have to be a female character, but the fact that Leia was there, I think, makes the idea behind the character in the narrative stronger, and that also ultimately, just skipping forward, some of the strongest stuff in The Rise of Skywalker, the better parts of it are to do with the mother-son element between Leia and then bringing Kylo back from the precipice, and resurrecting the Ben Solo within him. And that idea that I don't think it's really been confirmed anywhere, but that like Leia's final act in living was to maybe connect with Kylo Ren, with Ben Solo from so far away, and extract that notion, the memory of Han, in a really positive way. I think shows how pivotal her relationship was to Kylo Ren, even though we know that for one reason or another, Kylo Ren went off
Right.
with the Knights of Ren and so on, but she trusted Luke to be able to guide him. There weren't that kind of blame of what happened to her son doesn't fall on her really, and one could argue that the vision, the kind of flashback that we have in Rise of Skywalker, where Luke and Leia are training on Endor, and she stops because she has that vision about how she would lose her son. I guess is a way of saying, she gave everything, almost as a parallel to Shmi, in her own different way, sacrificed everything to try and do the best for her son,
Yeah.
similar to how Shmi gave everything to Anakin.
See, that's the kind of story, and one of those places that people could go is seeing, I think there are comics about some of it, but not all of it is Luke's Jedi Temple. We may see some more of that with the Grogu story, but you see the rise of Kylo Ren. I think that literally is a comic book in the Knights of Ren. But I don't want to see that live action without Carrie. I don't want to I think we're done and we let that go, because I think I'm going to wrap it up with I respect what you guys have said, and I totally agree with how we see Leia, and it is the best parts of her relationship with Rey and not making the mistakes that she made with Ben. But I'm going to wrap it into real life, as we tend to try and do, and talk about Carrie as the mother of Star Wars for us Star Wars fans. Okay, is Carrie Fisher was not just our general and our princess on screen. She, in her life, became that to Star Wars fans, among other things. I mean, Carrie had problems. Carrie was never shy about telling people about Carrie's problems, but was such the strong female role model for a generation of women. Just to look up to her and those kinds of brash ways that she would be, and then later became, the kind of cautionary tale and the example to tell you about struggling with mental health and struggling with addiction, and was able to be that kind of role model by the time she was that role model again in the sequel or trilogies, and how devastating it was to each and every one of us. We watched last night for May the 4th. We watched, well, it'd be a couple nights ago when this airs. We watched for May the 4th, the 40th anniversary panel with the tribute to Carrie Fisher. And those of us who had seen the panel before and those of us who had not seen that panel, I mean, get teary in that tribute to this woman, this just outlandish, strong woman who created this fictional character that has meant that much to us. I mean, how amazing is that? I mean, she's just become the mother of Star Wars.
Yeah, another one that's really good to watch on that is the panel that Mark hosted in Celebration, where he's reading the letter that he wrote. He wrote a letter that he prepared in advance, and he's having a real hard time getting through it. And that was a great panel to remember.
Well, I think we're ready to wrap this kind of thing up. We've done our time for the day. We've celebrated our 1 year. Woo! And we've talked very much about the importance of family and the importance of mothers on this Mother's Day. And I want to wrap it up again in the real, is not talking about Star Wars at all. I want to talk about my real life mom. Okay, I'm a child of the 70s. My mom and my sister and I grew up single parent family. My mom was the be all end all there for us, with the addition of actually other strong females as my grandmother and my great grandmother, who were single grandmas and single great grandmas to us. And just how much my mom helped foster my love and passion for Star Wars is so many comic book conventions that she lugged me to that she had zero interest in. How, she is the one who took me to see Return of the Jedi in theaters for the very first time, and spent Christmases going out and finding the Wicket W. Warwick plush to see my face for Christmas morning. So thank you to all the real moms who are out there fostering love for Star Wars, and my wife who tolerates me fostering this love for Star Wars in my daughters, and how they look up to this Leia's and the Hera Syndulas, and off the Mother's Day topic, how my daughter looks up to Jar Jar Binks. Don't even get me started. But so thank you all. Happy Mother's Day, and may the Force be with you.
Happy Mother's Day. May the Force be with you all.
Or be with you all.